Nigeria, fondly known as Africa's giant, a country with a population of over 200 million people who are popular for their diverse cultures and languages, as well as for its lush forests, unique wildlife, water bodies, and blessed with many natural resources. However, the interaction of these millions of people with their environment has left an indelible mark on the natural world. Biodiversity loss, flooding caused by excessive deforestation, desertification, land degradation, oil spillage, and all kinds of pollution are some of the resultant effects of man's attempt to satisfy their seemingly endless desire for food, shelter, recreation, and infrastructural facilities. These challenges pose a significant threat to the natural world and the health of the population.
There's a very rapid deterioration of the various ecosystems that keep the environment operable. Nature has always been in complete harmony with herself. Balance here, balance there. Typical of that is the ratio of gases in the atmosphere, the different gases, the specific ratio of greenhouse gases, for instance, like CO2, like methane. There's a specific ratio. And that ratio of gases is the main contributor of why this particular planet is the only habitable one that we've been able to observe, even with massive capability of our technology. And the reality is that over the last 50 years, we humans have been upsetting this ratio more and more. We've been emitting millions, hundreds of millions of tons of these greenhouse gases. And that is upsetting the balance that has made this planet habitable, and it's getting more rapid. And apart from that, we're seeing a very, very rapid increase in species extinction, the wiping out of different species. And each of these species are an intrinsic part of the web of life.
With a vision of a Nigeria where people prosper while living in harmony with nature, the NCF pioneered the conversation about nature conservation in Nigeria and was a key influence in driving institutions and policies that we now have today in Nigeria.
All those who spoke about those threats at that time were seen as sayers of doom and fictionalizing and sensationalizing the issues.
NCF started before even the name NGO started in Nigeria. NCF started operational. And then they started, it was NCF. NCF has a hand in this national park becoming a national park. Okomu National Park, NCF started managing the forest before the federal government now took it over and turned it to a national park. So you can see what NCF has done. And talk of professional development of people who started with NCF, they are all over the world now. So I think NCF has become an institution that the federal government cannot just afford to put aside, but to continue to drink from the well of knowledge and experience that NCF has actually garnered over the years.
NCF, we know, has been in the forefront of conservation. And I would even say NCF is one of our most valuable partners.
The NCF was founded by the late Chief S.L.A. Du, an astute businessman, technocrat, and philanthropist who used his influence as a member of the World Wildlife Foundation, WWF, and its ties with the royal family to institute the NCF together with some of his friends who became founding trustees and members. The NCF, from its inception, has had its grand patron as the sitting president and commander-in-chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
The trustees, the current trustees, Mr. Leventis, Akintola William, Izoma Philip Asiodu, the late Mrs. Francesca Emmanuel, the late Mrs. Aduke Alakija, and others had the foresight to lead this charge. And they brought their friends along.
The ties that bind NCF and WWF are deep and originated in the friendship between NCF's founder and former chairman, late Chief Edu, and the first president of WWF International, Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands.
In 1982, formally, the Nigerian Conservation Foundation was established. And the president at the time, President Shehu Shagari, hosted a formal commissioning or inauguration dinner, at which we were lucky to have Sir Peter Scott, the famous international conservationist, attending. And so that is how we began. And in the early days too, I'm glad to say that there were quite one or two people like Philip Hall in Maiduguri area, who had been organizing conservation efforts. And we had, in fact, in those days, at the beginning, I remember we had a good dinner soon afterwards in Kano, in which the Emir of Kano at the time distributed prizes to various district heads in Kano and local government leaders who had championed conservation. We had chapters in Benin, in Calabar, and that is how we began.
It was a very exciting time for NCF because things were happening all the time. We had Prince Bernhard come out to Nigeria. We started the Ecomo program during that time. We had Prince Bernhard out again the following year when we went to the Hadejurunguru project and laid the foundation stone for the Dagona Waterfowl Sanctuary. And then the big one was in 1989, which I was involved in preparing, which was the visit of the Duke of Edinburgh. And I accompanied him for 5 days around Nigeria, during which time we laid the foundation stones for the Cross River National Park. We went back to the Hadejurunguru and laid the foundation stone there for the new office complex. And then we came down to Lagos and he laid the foundation stone for the NCF headquarters, which of course was went on to become the most important organization in Nigeria, coordinating conservation activities.
It was very interesting to see some of the people who in those early days were very interested. Take someone like Alhaji Sakaita from the north. Take someone like Chief Anofi Gobadia. Take someone like Ambassador Aduke Alakija. Take someone like Mr. A.P. Leventis. So people of substance were brought into the fore.
When I started the Botanic Garden, there were not many people. Even in Lagos, there wasn't any Botanic Garden. The one they have in the University of Lagos was not anything to write home about. So I used to visit all those sites to see if I can gather some inspiration, talk to people who are in the plant world to see if they can give me advice. So because I was close to Chief Eseleju, I just spoke to him. One day he saw me and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm trying to develop a botanic garden." And he said, "Come to NCF. Maybe you can get some ideas." So that was how I started going to NCF when he was alive.
Well, anyone who knew Chief Edu would appreciate what is happening now, because Chief Edu he was a silent achiever and someone who broke all the barriers of national, international levels. And so whenever and a very discerning gentleman. And so when he, through his international connections, when he birthed the Conservation Foundation, he actually invited the right sort of people to be part of it with him.
He's a wonderful family man. We all learned from him. We all sat at the table, every dinner table with him, picked up. And my dad doesn't know age. The age was young, old, middle age. He doesn't know class, everybody around the table. And the message he sent down to his kids was amazing. But I think, as we all hear today, his biggest enduring legacy was conservation.
The NCF prides itself as the pioneer conservation non-governmental organization in Africa, and this is reflected in the projects and initiatives which have changed the position of Africans in pursuit of a sustainable and preserved natural world.
When the then president of World Wildlife Fund, who was the husband of the Queen of England, who passed away recently, the Duke of Edinburgh, he was invited on a visit to Nigeria by NCF. And two of the places they visited were Cross River and the Hadejonguru area. In Cross River, before they came, people thought there were no more gorillas in Nigeria at all. But NCF had sent a technical field team that actually discovered that gorillas were still existing in that Afi Mountain Wildlife Sanctuary area. And the husband of the Queen of England, the Duke of Edinburgh, was taken there. He met with the community, and that was part of the kernel of our start of projects there. But NCF was also there with him to lay the foundation stone of the Cross River National Park. Since then, we have had a very long-running, big Cross River National Park project supporting the national park when it was created in research, in patrolling and controlling poaching and logging, in education awareness and advocacy and outreach to people, and also in improving the lives of the communities who are around the area. And that project ran for almost a decade, where we were supporting that to happen so that the Cross River National Park can take off properly.
Today, Okomu National Park exists, courtesy of NCF. Even the service, I said, the National Park Service, the Act, the legal conference that was held to review the draft was sponsored by NCF. That led to the cleaning up of the draft bill, which later became an act.
The NCF has its footprints across the 36 states in Nigeria, making a significant impact. Each region in the country has benefited in one way or another from NCF projects or programs. Some of these projects and milestones include the Okomu Wildlife Sanctuary Conservation Project. Established in 1985, the Okomu Wildlife Sanctuary, located in Edo State, Nigeria, is one of NCF's projects. It started as a sanctuary and was handed over to the government in 1999 and thereafter transformed into Okomu National Park. The Hadeja Nguru wetland, established in 1987, was initiated during the visit of His Royal Highness Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands. It is one of NCF's foremost projects and now serves as a Ramsar site to monitor the well-being of migratory birds that come from Europe in the winter to settle in the area.
I can still remember August 1989 when I was posted from the Bauchi State Civil Service to work for an NCF-funded project, the Hadejia Nguru Wetlands Conservation Project. And that was after when the Bauchi State government, along with the then Borno and Kano states, signed an MOU with the Nigerian Conservation Foundation and other international partners, notably BirdLife International and the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds that are based in the UK, to manage the Hadejia Nguru wetlands. I was given the responsibility to be in charge of research and then monitoring of the wildlife resources that exist, in the wetlands, and specifically the migratory birds that normally come from Europe, to spend winter here and go back.
Established by the Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Company, NLNG, in 2001, the Finima Nature Park came from a consensus by the communities of Finima and Boni in Rivers State, South Nigeria, to protect the forests for its integrity, biodiversity, and the ecosystem services it provides for human settlements. Since 2011, the Nigerian Conservation Foundation has been managing the park, having succeeded the Niger Delta Wetland Center, NDWC. NCF consolidated the efforts of NDWC and built new frontiers for conservation, stronger community institutionalization, and injected renewed energy into research, biodiversity protection, and public education.
Initially, when the Niger Delta Wetland Center came on board for this conservation business, we were glad that most of the tenets of the agreement or memorandum of understanding, will be implemented to make sure that some form of allowance is being given out, for us tying down our land, doing nothing just for conservation business, and to ensure that it provides the necessary license for LNG to operate.
The 1,000 hectares park is one of the key biodiversity sites in the country. It adds value to biodiversity and enhances opportunities for sound environmental management and promotes environmental education and research. The Becheve Nature Reserve, BNR, is a classic example of partnership in community forest management, jointly owned by 6 communities and given to the NCF to manage with the active collaboration of the communities since 2003. The 130 hectares of lush forest that makes up the BNR and the adjoining Obudu Plateau serves as habitat for 31 of the 37 qualifying species placed under the Afro-Tropical Highlands Biome species.
Cross River National Park is very rich in biodiversity. It is one of the acclaimed United Nations 25 biodiversity hotspots in the world. It is one of the proposed transboundary biosphere reserve. It is also one of the proposed transboundary World Heritage sites. It is a biosphere reserve, an important bird area. The vegetation is believed to have evolved over 60 million years ago and is the richest rainforest ecosystem in Africa. And it hosts a lot of wildlife species, some of which are critically endangered, one of which is the Cross River gorilla. And it's a host to forest elephants, chimpanzees, golden pothos, Creole monkeys, and so on and so forth.
As part of the ecotourism initiative of the Cross River State Government, Becheve Nature Reserve was selected as one of the tourist sites in the state.
We worked with the NCF over the years in many ways on different projects. But one of prominent note is the management of the Becheve Nature Reserve, which is a reserve that is situated at the bottom of the Obudu Mountain Resort in Obudu. The NCF, in collaboration with ourselves and the community, the host community, have kept that nature reserve in good condition. We have used it together to promote awareness around conservation efforts to the home and host community, as well as to the larger society in Cross River State and beyond. Till date, the Becheve Nature Reserve serves as a rallying point for those ecotourism enthusiasts who visit Cross River State.
In 2006, the Cross River State government erected a canopy walkway in the reserve for tourists and visitors' use. The project is supported by the AP Leventis Foundation. The Ama Forest Reserve stands out as some of the last remaining forests in southwestern Nigeria, and it has been found to be biologically unique. Owned by the Ogun State government, NCF acts as a technical partner and has helped establish a wildlife sanctuary within the reserve, which they have been managing since 1989. The sanctuary serves to preserve the last population of African forest elephants, prominent amongst many others that have been designated as threatened.
They encourage us not to kill the animal. The usefulness of it, they told us, because the way the encroachment of the bush, that if we started killing all these animals, in time to come, we will not see many of them again. Our young child will not even know some of the animals.
Apart from conservation activities that cater to afforestation and biodiversity monitoring, NCF's role equally involves advocacy, community engagement, and environmental education.
There is an aspect of empowerment program in the scheme of things that we are doing here. So people are empowered through various training that we have been undertaking in the project. Also, children, they have been exposed to natural environments which, if not for the project, they would not have had the experience.
The Lekki Conservation Center has come to symbolize the successful conservation effort of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, NCF. Lekki Conservation Center, LCC, showcases unique biodiversity and preserves the scenic, natural, scientific, and recreational values of the coastal environment of the southwestern city of Lagos.
If you look after nature, nature will look after itself and come back to look after you. Because different from some other places, the Lekki story is a story of regeneration of a degraded forest. When NCF had the Lekki Conservation Center 30 years ago, a lot of it was farmland with coconuts, with arable crops and other things. All NCF did, with brilliant support, strong support from Chevron Nigeria Limited, was put a fence around these 80 hectares and make sure that the plants and animals there are left on their own. And that degraded farmland, where we had cassava, where we had coconut, where we have things, is now the massive mangrove forest that you now find that is serving as the sink for flooding in Lagos. All around here, Lekki Conservation Center is serving to prevent flooding of this part of Lagos because it is a wetland that is remaining intact. It is serving to clean the air of Lagos because the plants here have trapped the dust, they have trapped the carbon dioxide, they have released the oxygen, that this is the cleanest air in Lagos metropolis when you come here. And it's also locking up carbon, so contributing to reducing climate change. And the animals are also regenerating. When I was here 20 years ago, we have to go deep into the reserve and go around in order to see monkeys in Lekki Conservation Center. Now, when you drive into the gate, you have monkeys greeting you because their population has recovered from where it was. And it's not just monkeys that we can see, a lot of small insects, plants, birds that didn't used to be here then, they are now back here. And this is serving as a place that connects people with nature in Lagos. Without Lekki Conservation Center, Lagos people wouldn't have had a place close enough where they can go and experience nature and love it and get reinforcement for the passion to protect it.
Launched in 1990 by late Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, as a flagship project, the LCC was established to preserve the representative sample of vegetation and animals of the Lekki Peninsula. With over 100,000 tourists and visitors yearly, the LCC has become a powerful resource center providing environmental education, research, public engagement, and policy advocacy, amongst others, while providing opportunities for events and family activities in a bid for people to connect with the natural world. With a canopy walkway designed with stops for bird watching and a boardwalk leading through the reserve, equally designed with attractions like tree houses, the reserve holds old trees, various species like crocodiles, birds, and the most prominent, the monkeys. The NCF, in implementing its initiatives, is involved in the provision of alternative livelihood solutions in areas where their projects are implemented, as a strategy to attract the buy-in of the members of these communities and to ensure the sustainability of the implemented projects.
We've had a lot of what we call livelihood projects, where we'll be able to provide alternative livelihoods to these communities. And even after we pull out, we are able to see these communities take on. For instance, the Hadejanguru wetlands, we have site support groups, and these site support groups have continued with some of the activities we introduced to them, max weaving for the women, so that instead of cutting down the dome palm, which is very, which is like the common tree species in that place, they harvest the fronds to be able to make mats, and then instead of cutting down trees for firewood, they have stoves that they are fuel efficient stoves that are used. They help to be able to for their fuel wood efficiency, and for their firewood and things like that.
With a unit solely dedicated to policy and advocacy, the NCF works with policymakers at global and national levels with the scope to carry out lobbying and to influence policies that will protect the Nigerian environment and biodiversity. Another laudable feat the NCF has heralded in the past 20 years is the annual SLA-Do lecture, which is used to discuss topical issues in the conservation space while driving environmental advocacy and policies. One of the highlights of this annual lecture is the award of the Chief SLA-Do Research Grant sponsored by Chevron Nigeria.
I came across the call for the PhD, SLA-Do research grant at a point where, I was at a crossroad actually, trying to determine where my specialization would be. And I'm going through the objectives. What it did for me was to prove to my colleagues, and particularly my supervisory team, that I was doing the right thing, particularly as I looked at conflict and controls in protected area management. So at that point in time in my department, there wasn't much knowledge about it. And we had, a very tough battle trying to gain, my department had a tough battle trying to gain my project, as credible work for a PhD. And when I came across the call for the PhD, I applied. And when I won that grant, it was a clear statement, to the world that I was on the right path, and I really appreciated that.
And the grant really helped, because it helped in offsetting some of the bills I had to take care of, and so on. So it was quite nice. So it was 500,000 then, but it was really, it came at the right time.
With core interest in youth engagement, the NCF has launched several projects to provide environmental education to the populace, especially the young people, through the formation of school conservation clubs, community engagements, arts and essay competitions, with a view to promoting positive behavioral change among the people.
I was working with NCF between 1987 and 1992, which is when we developed all these activities. And I was helped a great deal by Mrs. Mohammed, and she was a key person in the education department as well. During those days, we tried to train teachers in different states. So at one point we sent 20 Nigerians to Jordan Hill in Glasgow to do a 3-month course on environmental education. And they came back and they went off back to their own places and started working on environmental education in those places.
Environmental education is interdisciplinary in nature, and we don't have specific textbooks for environmental education per se. But NCF came out with this series of environmental education textbook that has helped our students a lot. They have been going through this book. It acts as a resource material for them, because getting a book on environmental education per se is not always easy.
We developed, through the efforts of NCF, diploma program which is still running, first degree, second degree, and now a PhD program. So graduates and students are all beneficiaries. And we have students who have passed through these programs, and they are doing well in different environmental units. In fact, the state coordinator of NCF was a student of our program. Today he is working with NCF and is the state coordinator.
What I found most interesting was the World Migratory Birds Day, because until then I didn't know light was a pollutant. It was thought that light was a pollutant to birds during migrations. So they asked us to dim the light for birds at night so that the birds can migrate safely from one border to another.
The NCF in the past 40 years has made several landmark contributions to national development, especially with its role of working with the government to align Nigeria's plan and actions. Some of those key contributions include drafting of the National Conservation Strategy, otherwise known as the Roadmap document for the decent conservation of natural resources in Nigeria in 1984. Supported the enactment of the Endangered Species Decree, now an Act of Parliament, drafting of the Nigerian Conservation Education Strategy in 1988, facilitated the setting up of the Department of Environmental Education in University of Calabar in 1991, instrumental to the setting up of the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, FEPA, which evolved into the Federal Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources in 1992. Instrumental to the establishment of the Federal Ministry of Environment and some other states' Ministry of Environment or Forestry in 1999. Instrumental to setting up of the Nigeria National Park Services in 1999. Led the review of the National Biodiversity Strategic Action Plan for Nigeria in 2012, drafting of the Nationally Determined Contribution, NDC, on climate change. A natural environment is critical in improving the quality of life in Nigeria, and it is safe to say that over the past 40 years, the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, NCF, has played a key role in doing this and in fulfilling its vision of a Nigeria where people prosper while living in harmony with nature. And this success we can attribute to a structured and efficient system of governance, one that is transparent, accountable, and that promotes inclusion and diversity.
NCF is a very strong organization. As an NGO, in fact, sometimes some people look at us as if we are government agency. So we are kind of quasi-government agency, and we've been around all this while, and our success is because of how we are structured, very strong. We have two levels of governance. We have the Board of Trustees and we have the National Executive Council. And the National Executive Council has different subcommittees as well. HR Committee, Conservation and Environmental Service Committee. We have the Finance Committee, the Building Committee. So all these committees kind of have the subcommittees of the National Executive Council, and then which reports to the board, which the president is the chairman of the board and the president of NCF.
Not so many NGOs have this kind of structure that we have. And the fact that we have this kind of structure makes us very stable and strong, because we are accountable and we are responsible and we are able to deliver. But perhaps without this kind of structure, it wouldn't have happened. Then there would be, no accountability, no this, no that, and then you would have been forgotten like other NGOs come and go, that kind of a thing. But we've lasted 40 years, and we have a legacy. And the people that make up the NEC don't just come and say, I want to be a NEC member. They are actually sourced for, chosen and selected and invited to it. You don't beg to apply to it. You get invited to be a NEC member for certain reasons, for certain qualities, certain things you bring as add-on, and you're able to deliver things. So that is a plus for NEC. And of course, BOT had been from inception.
To show you how our probity is, the Akintola Williams Deloitte are our auditors, and they've been auditing us for years. And I mean, we have that. So, and it's the membership-based organization, corporate membership, right from platinum down to bronze, and then we have membership in terms of the family membership, individual membership, and so on. So, and all of those, and the student membership, because we want to carry everybody along.
NCF recognizes that no one can do it alone, and has therefore maintained a relationship that has sustained its efforts. The partnerships cut across government institutions, institutional international partners, international development agencies, corporates and private businesses, academia, the media, faith groups, local non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and other relevant stakeholders.
Nigerian Conservation Foundation is the BirdLife partner in Nigeria. It was one of the first organizations across Africa to become a national partner of BirdLife International, and has been a fantastic contributor to the development of Africa-wide programs for birds biodiversity, and I suppose putting nature at the heart of people's livelihoods, and that interconnection between improving the quality of life on Earth for people, along with the rest of biodiversity in the natural world.
Okay, we partner with them in our conservation efforts, like the Great Green Wall project that Nigeria is the presidency now, that we're taking on. We intend to have NCF work closely with us in implementing most of the projects. Besides the livelihood projects, the tree planting and ecosystem restoration projects.
We believe that we cannot do anything alone. We have to build partnerships from the youth, from faith-based organizations, from different NGOs, from the government at different levels, at the federal level, at the sub-national levels, and so on.
I think the partnership can only get stronger. We have a memorandum of understanding signed with NCF. We have even renewed it recently. We keep having projects together with them and these clubs. And so hopefully even later this year, we hope to sit together with the Director General of NCF again to plan for future years like we always do. So I think it goes from strength to strength.
NCF has partnered with the Lagos State government through the Ministry of the Environment for over 15 years in hosting the Work for Nature program, and also in carrying out other nature conservation projects. The state government has made a lot of donations and support to the foundation, but the most significant is the donation of this canopy walkway that I'm standing on. It is the longest canopy walkway in Africa and the second longest canopy walkway in the world.
The NCF prides itself as being in the front line in Nigeria's conservation and environmental protection. In this niche, the NCF has developed the Strategic Action Plan, SAP, that will guide its activities in the next decade. These plans are built on 4 main pillars, namely saving species in peril, the green recovery in Nigeria, tackling the climate crisis, fostering collaboration with stakeholders. In recent years, the NCF has worked with ambassadors who are championing the message of species conservation and creating awareness for endangered species like the African vulture and pangolins, amongst many others.
I have a 2-year relationship with the Nigerian Conservation Foundation as ambassador for their Save Vulture campaign, which they recently rebranded as Save Vulture and Other Wildlife campaign. And in the 2 years that I have known them, I have worked hard in bringing awareness about the role that vultures play in our environment and also the need to conserve our vultures and other wildlife.
Since the NCF was established 4 decades ago, forests have been at the center of the work of the NCF and continue to inspire the activities of the foundation.
We are reorienting the whole of our organization in order to be able to deliver on the ambitions of the Green Recovery Nigeria initiative. The reason is because Nigeria has one of the highest rates of deforestation in the world. We have moved at independence in 1960 from having 35% of our land covered by forests to now where we have just about 5% of Nigeria's land covered by forests. We set up the Green Recovery Nigeria in a technical way. We brought all stakeholders together. They strategized, they brainstormed, they came up with a holistic program that shows that in order to really reach this ambitious goal in just about 40 years, then what we need to do is make sure we stop cutting the forest that currently exists as much as possible.
The seedlings are here that we grow from the seeds, and then we bring them to places like where we are reforestating, like in Olokemeji Forest and other places. Even on our own campus here, we are replacing some of the non-indigenous trees with indigenous trees.
Green Recovery is putting a lot of effort into tree planting, but not just ordinary tree planting. It's planting the right trees in the right place, in the right quantity, at the right time. And last year alone, we did 1.7 million trees across Nigeria just on our own. And then with partners and others, we did even more. And we want to ramp up that and up our game.
They have done very well here because when they came in, they encouraged us to plant more trees. And they brought trees to us for free, over 20 to 22,000. And it was through them that most of us, the farmers, demarcating their land, protecting the land through tree planting.
In addition to all this work done by the NCF, it is important to note that the foundation is a strong advocate for climate change, which is making huge impact in Nigeria. The foundation maintains the leading role in promoting environmental conservation and sustainable development, thus becoming the institutional symbol of natural resource management in Nigeria. But the big question to all of us is, what have you done for your environment lately? Get involved today by visiting our website at www.ncfnigeria.org. Be a partner with us for nature.